Hi, my name is Liz. I'm Liz FM on Ravelry and Twitter, and Liz Farley Metzger on Instagram, which I'm embarrassed to say I had to look up. I don't know who I am on any of these things. This video is in response to Sam's thread from Come Knit With Us called Show Us What You See. And it's also inspired by Dan and Kay of the Bakery Bears podcast. They're awesome tours on sites that are near them in England. And Sarah from Fiber Trek and her great pondcasts, where she films beside her pond on her property. I believe that's her property. Also, Disa's Craft Works. Disa, who has posted what she sees when she goes for walks in the wood in Sweden, and I enjoy that very much, and so I thought, well, I will show you what the various regions in Arizona look like as I go from Tempe, Arizona to Flagstaff today to go pick my husband up, who's coming in on the train. Arizona has a wide variety of different biomes, which is a climatically and geographically defined region. Arizona is, of course, in the Sonoran Desert. It's a very arid environment, so a lot of the differences in their geography and plant life are related to the elevation. So we are, where are we? In elevation in Tempe, Arizona, which is where I live, is 1,140 feet. And we're going to Flagstaff, which is 7,000 feet in elevation, which is quite the difference. It is, what is today's date? The 24th of October. Right now, where I'm filming, it is 86 degrees. Sorry, I don't know the Celsius. I can't convert that in my head. You're going to have to convert it yourselves. Today's high in Tempe is supposed to be 95, and we're going to Flagstaff, which I said is an elevation of 7,000 feet, which is 67 degrees right now, and the high of 72, which is much preferable. What else did I want to talk about? Right now I'm in Papago Park. Which is an urban park in metropolitan Phoenix. It's a very large park, and I think would give you a good idea of the native species, plant species that were in the Phoenix area before we built a city here. Phoenix is in the Salt River Valley, which the Salt River used to be a river. Mostly it's a trickle now. It's also called the Valley of the Sun. It's a very arid and hot region. In the summer, our temperatures are often over 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, believe me, vastly unpleasant. So I will now take the iPad and walk around a little bit to show you some of the plants and the area that you would see in the park, because I didn't think it was very exciting to show you my townhouse. Bye-bye. Alright, this is what was behind me in Papago Park when I was speaking earlier. This is what more of the native plants look like. Here is, I think that's what's in the screen. There are Palo Verde, which are green-barked trees, which are really cool looking, I think. If I recall correctly, and we don't count on my memory for anything, but if I recall correctly, because they can't count on having large leaves for photosynthesis, this plant gets a lot of its photosynthesis from the bark. I may have to look that up and cut this part out and be embarrassed later that I didn't know that correct. That I was all wrong about that. That green stuff there is creosote bush, which is another native plant. It has a waxy covering on it, but when it rains, it's very strong smelling. In fact, there's a book I think it's a children's book about the Tohono O'odham, who is a native tribe here. And the book is called The Desert Smells Like Rain. So it's a very strong smell when it does rain, when the humidity is high, you can smell that. It's a very it's a very striking smell. You'll never forget it. And when the wind comes in before the thunderstorms start, you can smell the creosote bush on the wind before the rain gets to you. Those are some of the rock formations in Papago Park. Way off, more in the center of the picture there, is Camelback, which, if you could see it more in what I need a script. It would dwarf these rocks if you could see it better in perspective. Perspective, thank you, that was the word I was looking for. That black thing snaking through here, it looks like a non-man-made environment, but this park actually, a lot of the plants are irrigated because it's heavily used and they want to keep it green. Apparently they don't flood irrigate, obviously, but I think some of the specific plants have water running to them so that it looks nice. And we're back in the little shade structure near the picnic area. It's hard for me to see what's on the iPad screen when I'm out in the sun because the sun is so strong and so bright. But I did want to say a little factoid for those of you who might be interested, that Phoenix is a part of the LTER network. LTER stands for Long-Term Ecological Research Network. Phoenix is the CAP LTER, which is the Central Arizona Phoenix LTER, and it, along with Baltimore, are the only two specifically urban long-term ecological research sites in the network, at least in the U.S. I'm not sure about other parts of the world. I did look on the European LTER site briefly because it's been a while. My husband and I were both graduate students at Arizona State University in Tempe, and were part of what was then the Center for Environmental Studies, and now the Global Institute for Sustainability's IGERT, Integrated Graduate Education, Research, and Training. It's a graduate program that takes grad students from multiple different departments. This particular one was in urban ecology, and there were biologists and archaeologists and sociologists and geographers, geologists. Lots of different people take part in this IGERT, which is sort of married to the LTER. Lots of different departments take part in research within the LTER framework. It's meant to, they say, track ecological processes over time and space. So basically all of Phoenix is a gridded environmental research site. And you couldn't see me do that, but I use my hands when I talk. So basically they put a grid over the Phoenix metro. And so I'm not sure how small it gets. It gets down fairly small to just a few feet, few yards. They can scale it up or scale it down. So any research that's done in the Phoenix area within the LTER framework, of course not everybody that does research on Phoenix is part of the LTER, but those who are, and they do the research within that LTER framework, the research is kept. The LTER, CAP LTER, the Phoenix LTER keeps records. So unlike where most academic research, if the researcher, if they graduate with their PhD and go away, or if they retire and are not a professor anymore, or they leave academia and go off to make actual money in, industry somewhere, that the hard data, the bulk of the data, anything that they research kind of goes off with them, and the only thing you can ever find are what they published. This way, CAP LTER and any of the LTER sites keep that. And so if there's databases of information or whatever research that was done, it is kept. And so people can, you can look at any location if you have access to LTER data, you can look at any location in the Phoenix metro area and see any research that was done by a CAP LTER scientist, whether that was sociology, whether that was climatology, whether that was soil sampling or water quality. So it's sort of a team effort to study on an extremely broad scale that you just do not see generally in environmental research, both in time and in space, and in multiple different types of research. Like I said, from social science to heart, the bioscience, climate science. So it's really this kind of thing was why my husband and I ended up coming down here to graduate school and getting our master's degrees. He in natural science and the biosciences, and me in cultural anthropology. My particular research was part of the North Desert Village project. You can Google it if you want. It was about people's preferences for their home landscapes. And let me just say now, everybody thinks, oh, it's all those people from wet areas like Minnesota or, Kansas move down here and think they have to have grass and trees in their yard. And the data, not just in our project, there is another enormous study that the sociology people do. The Phoenix Area Social Survey, PASS, Phoenix Area Social Survey. It's part of LTER, and they do surveys. They survey a lot more people than we did and ask them all kinds of questions, demographics questions, and just all kinds of, I wasn't part of that, but I know it is a huge survey. It goes every couple of years. And we mimic some of those questions in the North Desert Village study. Mostly, though, we were concerned about how people felt about what kind of landscape they wanted in their yard. And along with every other study that's been done, we found that it's the natives, it's the people that grew up in this area or in other desert areas, cities like Salt Lake City or Las Vegas or Phoenix or anywhere in the arid West. If you grew up here, you think having grass and trees in your yard is a birthright. But if you grew up somewhere like Kansas or Missouri or Minnesota or Illinois and you move here, you have this basic understanding that if you want grass and trees in your yard, it basically means rain needs to come from the sky. So that's one of the many findings that are kind of counterintuitive for a lot of people that I think is interesting about environmental science, social science research that I don't do anymore. I work for the university, but absolutely not in a research capacity. The other thing that I will say, I will not get into environmental studies and ecology philosophy, but I will just say that we have this dichotomy we tend to have this dichotomy of wilderness, which is untouched by man, and, urban areas or peri-urban, near-urban areas, anywhere, wherever people have been, they've screwed it up, and everything else, the untouched wilderness is untouched. Well, I'm here to tell you, as is almost every other environmental social scientist ever, that there's nowhere that hasn't been touched by humans. It might have been touched slightly less, or it was touched by a native population that didn't make massive changes on the environment, but everywhere, here in every wilderness, every designated wilderness area ever, and that they are a good thing. I'm not saying wilderness designation is not something that we need. We do. But the idea that we can put a barrier around a place and call it wilderness and say humans never had anything to do with this, it's untouched, not true. Maybe less touched now because there are rules. But before, the native people were there and they used it. And this is going to get really long. But so I will stop that there, and I won't talk anymore about environmental philosophy. But since we're talking about, or since this video is mostly about the area, the environment, and the ecosystem, and what I see when I look out the door after I drive a little while, that's it. Hi, we're back. We're in New River, Arizona, which is right along Interstate 75. I hope the wind noise is not too horrible. And this is the stereotypical image of Arizona, the saguaro cactus. They are very big. Let me let you see this abandoned, well, not abandoned, for sale place. So you can see some scale. They are large. They grow very slowly. I did a little bit of looking up on the internet last night. A 10-year-old plant may be only an inch and a half tall, but they can't grow that slow all the time because they live to be 150 to 200 years old and can get 40 to 60 feet tall, depending on the rainfall, fully hydrated. Of course, during the dry season, they lose water, but when it does rain, they soak up all that they can, and in the rainy season, they can get to between 3,200 and 4,800 pounds. People have been killed by them falling over on them. They don't have a very deep root system. They do have, I don't know if you would call it a taproot, but they do have one deep root. Let's see the hill by New River, another stereotypically southwestern Arizonan view. They have a deep taproot, but most of their root system is only like 6, I think, inches deep. So they're not particularly stable, and they will fall over, and people have done stupid stuff like push up against them with Jeeps and knock them over. They are protected. It is illegal to do that kind of stupid stuff, which of course doesn't always stop people from doing it. But there is a fine, and you can get yourself majorly in trouble. All that noise is Interstate 17. I didn't want to get very far off the interstate. But there's your Arizona saguaro. And here we are in a very different biome. This is Agua Fria National Monument. Again, we are very close to I-17. I know I said I-75 at the beginning of the other little snippet, but that was wrong. It's I-17. And here we are up. I'm not sure what the elevation is here, but I did pass a sign a while ago on the interstate that said that we were at 3,000 feet. We are up out of saguaro territory for the most part. I didn't say earlier, the Phoenix metro area, although saguaro will grow there if people transplant them, it's my understanding that of their own accord, they did not generally grow there before. They have to be up just a little bit in elevation to grow naturally. This is more of, there was a section of road, and I was not about to stop on the side of the highway, but there was a section of road earlier that was more up on the mesa, up on the flat area, a little bit higher up, sort of back that direction. Those mesa means table, and so the big higher flat areas in the West are called mesas. Up on the mesa, it almost looks like shortgrass prairie to me. There's not as many bushes. There's really not trees here. Things that look like small trees are really more bushes. As is, by the way, the Palo Verde that I was talking about before. Those are really bushes rather than trees. Although people trim them to look like trees. This is more of a higher elevation grassland. I will read a little bit of the National Monument sign while I pan around. I think those are mesquite. I am not a botanist. There is the interstate, which I will correctly call I-17 this time. The 111 square mile or 71,000 acre Agua Fria National Monument is part of BLM's National Landscape Conservation System of lands. It's a semi-desert grassland, and it's a valuable habitat for Arizona grassland species such as pronghorn and the upland birds. So there are stream systems when it rains. There's probably a wash or a dry creek bed down in there. When it rains here, it does pour. So that is what this biome looks like. I don't know if you can make out. There are some low-growing cactus on that middle range hill past the bushes. I don't know how good a picture this is taken, but on that, in the sort of foreground past the bush, that little hill in front of the bigger hill, there are, I think those are probably prickly pear cactus. So that's what this looks like. Onward and upward. And here we are. We are just north of Flagstaff in the Ponderosa Pine Forests, and there is the San Francisco Peaks. They're not as tall as the Rocky Mountains, say in Rocky Mountain National Park, but they are part of the Rocky Mountain system. This is designated the Kachina Peaks Wilderness. It was designated in 1984. The peaks, as they call it, is actually one great big mountain with its top blown off. Says that the stratovolcano was created between 2 million and 400,000 years ago when successive volcanic eruptions layered lava, ash, and cinders. The summit was once 16,000 feet high, but it lost 3,500 feet during the eruptions. It's now, Mount Humphreys is now Arizona's highest point at 12,633 feet above sea level. Right now we're probably around 7,000. As far as how many miles we've come, when we were in, we're about 160 miles from where we started in Papago Park. The first stop, the Saguaros, was about 40 miles past that. The Agua Fria stop was about 70 miles, 30 miles past that, and now we're at about 160. The San Francisco Peaks are sacred to a lot of the native tribes, and we have several in Arizona. We have the Navajo, the Hopi, the Zuni, the Apache. As I mentioned before, at Papago, the Tohono O'odham. I'm not even going to try to list even most of them, but of the tribes that were up in this part of Arizona, naturally, these were very special mountains. In particular to the Hopi in the Hopi belief system, the San Francisco Peaks, and there is a word, they have a name for them, but I would not be able to pronounce it. It is the San Francisco Peaks were home to the Kachina spirits, and I know a lot of people who know about the West, American West, and native cultures in Arizona have seen pictures or have seen what we call the Kachina dolls. Of course, they're not really dolls, they're figurines. But the Kachina spirits, to the Hopi, the Kachina are the ancestors who have become clouds. Of course, the peaks catch a lot of moisture. Clouds pile up on the peaks. It's really very clear today. And this is in no way a wet ponderosa forest, but they do catch a lot of the moisture comes down onto the peaks because the clouds catch on the elevations. I know that's probably not right. Some climatologist is spinning in their grave, but anyhow, the Kachinas believe that the ancestors become clouds after their death, and then the Katsinam, which I guess is the word for multiple Kachina spirits, they visit the Hopi villages, which I believe are all to the east. I think the San Francisco Peaks are the west boundary of the Hopi world, or the Hopi area, their traditional area. So the Kachina spirits visit the Hopi villages half of the year, and then the other half of the year they come back home to the San Francisco Peaks. So I don't know if you can hear some of the birds. This is just a little rest stop that has a nice view of the peaks. I'm gonna try to go up towards the Arizona Snow Bowl. Oh, that's what else I was gonna say about it. The other side of that highest point is the Arizona Snow Bowl, which is a ski area on those occasions during which we have actual snowfall. Many years here it's very arid. We've had a lot of drought years, but there is, you can see that the very top is just kind of above timberline, but it's definitely not one of those mountains that's got snow on it all year round. Anyhow, the Snow Bowl is an Arizona ski resort, which very controversially is located on the top of the San Francisco Peaks. Controversial not only because it's land that's considered sacred to several native tribes, but also because they make fake snow when it gets cold enough. Today it's only about 70 degrees, so it's not nearly cold enough, even though it's October and everywhere else is experiencing chillier weather. But I want to say, this may be very wrong, I want to say that they use not reclaimed water exactly, but let's just say it's not pure water. And so the Snow Bowl ski area sprays fake snow on top of this sacred peak, and a lot of environmentalists as well as native tribes find that to be problematic. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. And here we are, about as high in elevation as we're going to get today. I'm not sure how high up we are. We're way up the mountain from where we stopped before in Flag. There's some aspens for Sam. We are about as high up to the Snow Bowl as you can get. Sorry, I'm kind of going a little bit faster than I probably should there. There's the top of the peak there. This is the parking lot next to the trailheads for the various trails and the parking for the Snow Bowl. It's gorgeous out today. I'm going to
slowly try to turn around. That's heading towards the east. Towards the north. Somewhere out there, 70 miles away, is, I don't want to get too bright the sun in that, is the Grand Canyon. We will not be going there on this trip. I'm going to find a place somewhere to fill out my handy dandy little chair that I carry in my car and go sit and knit in the time that I have left before I have to go pick up Steven. It's like 4:30. He said his train's supposed to be in at 9, but they were running late. They're in Albuquerque now. They may not take as long as stop in Albuquerque to try to make up time, but he said they were like an hour and a half late. I hope it's not 9 or 10:30 at night before they get in. But there you go. There's the San Francisco